Okay, so tell me about you growing up. Tell me a little bit about young Monica, the foundation of who you are today.
Okay. I grew up in Ottawa. My family's always lived here, um, and yeah, I have three siblings, and I'm the youngest. So I grew up with a decent amount of influence from them, and yeah, just I've always been interested in art, and that was sort of my main hobby as a kid. Um, in school, I didn't have a ton of friends, so I used art as sort of like a solace place to clear my thoughts and have something that I could share with people in some small ways. And yeah, I think I started drawing because I wanted to be able to show people something that they would sort of connect with me on. And I always remember watching my mom on the phone before I went to school, and she would doodle while she was on the phone, doing banking or whatever. And I would sort of try to mimic her and draw what she was drawing. And the the sort of fulfillment of her getting off the phone and looking at my drawings and complimenting them, I think, is what drove me to practice drawing more and try to try new things and draw more things that I could show to people and get that reaction of like, oh, that's cool, I like that. I think that was one of my drives to connect with people because I was pretty shy as a kid. Not necessarily quiet because I was a bit of an attention seeker in that way. I would try to get reactions out of people, but it wasn't always a positive reaction, I would say. But drawing was something that I could do that was positive and made people have a reaction to me that I liked. And yeah, the more subjects that I tried drawing and things that I realized people liked and could sort of reach for and try to draw those things made me feel more connected to people, I would say. Um, I've always liked comics and animation, so those things really influenced me. Drawing characters from stuff was something that I could hear that someone liked something and draw a character from it. And then eventually when you're in school and you draw, you get people asking you to draw them, which always made me nervous because I wasn't good at drawing. I just liked drawing and I would practice a lot. So generally I would tend more towards like drawing something that I knew they liked and try to appease them in that way sort of thing. But socially, I definitely struggled a lot more as a kid. When I was in school, I experienced a lot of bullying and sort of being ostracized in some ways. And yeah, like I said, I was shy, but I was loud at times and goofy, and a lot of people would call me like silly and trying to think of like the meaner words that people would use, but I guess it's blocked out. But yeah, just the idea of like seeking attention but not always knowing how to get it in a way that made me feel good and feel fulfilled, and drawing was definitely an outlet that sort of resolved that for me. And then yeah, I didn't have a ton of friends at school, and then being the youngest in my family, I also got some heat from my siblings of like, I'm the youngest, I'm the least smart, the least experienced, so I had a lot of stuff that they could pick on me about. But I feel like my family, we were not so close when we were all growing up because we were all going through our own things of dealing with mental illness and dealing with the genetic predisposition to sadness and anger and stuff. So finding our own ways to deal with that when we were younger sort of separated us. And we were all pretty possessive of our, I wouldn't call it like happiness, but our feelings of safety. We weren't really sharing them with each other or anything. So yeah, I would say I was pretty lonely for a lot of my childhood. And yeah, that feeling felt like overwhelming at times. But once I started to sort of come out of that feeling that like the world is against me and people don't like me, it got a lot easier to connect with people in ways other than drawing, and feel like I had something to offer. And I didn't need to freak out about interactions with people, whether that was like just going in too hard or too fast into situations, or you know, seeking out situations where like there's like almost no options for friendship or for companionship. It's just yeah, that I would say like that was something that caused me a lot of grief. Like once I was out of elementary school and into high school and stuff, I definitely sought out situations where it was very intense. I like once I was in high school, I realized that I could sort of, rather than just drawing people things, I could do drugs, or I could sell people drugs and make that connection with people. Like everyone likes drugs, and people like me when I have the drugs and stuff. That was definitely something that I struggled with. And I felt better than I had when I was lonely as a kid, but I realized that it was like a different kind of loneliness, to have people, you know, want something from you and not actually want to be around you. Yeah, I think those were sort of the two great vices in my growing up time, was loneliness and then seeking things outside of myself to make connections. Yeah, I think that's it for like my childhood. I think things got a lot better once I sort of separated from the group that I'd been growing up with all my life. You know, went away to school and you know, went into workplaces and stuff. I started to realize that like, oh, I have inherent value. I have things to offer that I don't need to sort of reach outside of myself to make connections and have people see things in me that they like. Yeah, going to university out of town definitely helped a lot, because I went to school in North Bay, which is in Northern Ontario, and that the environment of going to school at Nipissing University, there's a lot of people from smaller towns in Ontario, and there's a few people from North Bay, but almost no one is from that town. So everybody needs to make friends, and everybody is sort of going to experience some loneliness of being away from their family and what they're used to. And that really gave me more confidence to reach out to people and be like, this is who I am. This is who I've developed into, and I'm not a kid anymore. I don't need to be afraid of, or there are so many options for people that need friends. I don't need to be trying to fit into one group that you know, doesn't like certain things, or sort of wants you to be one way. Yeah, I had a lot of opportunity to sort of explore my skills also. I went to school for fine arts, which was great. Like I also, when I was still living in Ottawa, I tried to go to school for English, because that's what my parents and my sister did, and I dropped out of that pretty quick because I don't like reading. Writing is fine, but I don't like reading. And then I tried to go to school for animation, and I just found it too difficult, and you know, seeing people cry every day in class was not my cup of tea. So yeah, dropped out of that too. So once I sort of took a year off and decided, like, if I'm going to go to school, I have to go for something that I actually like and I feel confident doing, or else I'm just not going to do it. So I went to school for fine arts at Nipissing. So yeah, I got to explore more of my art skills and develop those a bit more. But I also joined like some residence programs because I was living on campus, and then eventually I became a residence assistant, or a Dawn as they call it at some universities. And yeah, that, I would say that really like changed my outlook on who I am and how I make connections and how capable I am of things. Sort of gave me a lot of value in myself, being able to help other people and just guide people to the right resources. And yeah, there was a lot of good support in that, of people recognizing what you're good at and what you can help people with. And yeah, really sort of shook off a lot of the feelings of like unworthiness, and yeah, made me feel a lot more like whole as a person, which made me feel like who I am today. Really have to attribute to that. And you know, my struggles are one thing, but having the ability to break free from those struggles was something that I really needed and benefited from. And I think I would recommend it to other people if you feel stuck in your hometown or whatever. Just get out and do something that gives you a leadership role, makes you realize what you're capable of. Yeah.
I mean, I think in that I got these two big drives in your life. Obviously, the artistic drive. It sounds like you've always been interested in expression through art, and I love that story about your mom. Is that the first place that you were really inspired to do art? Would you say that was it?
Yeah, both my parents, like, they wouldn't call themselves artists, and they think that their drawings are crummy or whatever. But yeah, my mom, she draws these little doodles that could easily be like, part of someone's design, like graphic design sort of stuff. Like she draws cute little bunnies that are very recognizable as her bunnies and stuff. And that was something that I definitely, those were the first things that I would imitate from her. Is like I could watch her do the steps of like the head and the body, and the little face. So I would imitate that. And then my dad has also drawn some really funny political comics, like just goofy little things where he'll draw like a caricature of someone and then have a little speech bubble and stuff. So that also probably influenced my interest in comics, is like just seeing my dad sort of express himself that way. My dad also, he's kind of like a World War nut. Like he studies a lot of history about war, and he builds model tanks. So
he's quite good.
Yeah, they're like miniature tanks that they're totally accurate to real life, and there is like also a creative aspect to it where he builds bases for the tanks, and he'll put foliage and different sort of architectural pieces behind it that are also influenced from the time that the tank is from, and that's something that like not every miniature tank creator does. Like that's something that I found very unique about my dad's pieces, is that he'll do like a water element of something and then put things sunken in the water, or a wall that has propaganda poster on it and stuff. Like he really pays attention to the little details and makes it something that's cool to look at, even for someone who doesn't know necessarily all the details. And that definitely inspired me. Like I draw and I've painted, but sculpture is something that I find really almost like peaceful, and you can just keep going with sculpture. Like you can keep adding more detail and refining it as you go. And I think that his work really inspired me in that sense. Yeah, and my mom also just has a good eye for art, I would say. She's not into just classical art pieces, which I would say a lot of my knowledge and experience with classical art came from university, which I really appreciated. It gives you a really good foundation, but my parents sort of inspired me to look beyond that and look more at sort of expressions and just the little details that you can make your own. My mom always says that I'm good at capturing the essence of things, which when I was younger, I kind of used to think, oh, that just means it's not realistic. That just means it's not good. But now I get that sort of review from people that I tattoo and stuff. When I draw them a design, say like a pet portrait or a memorial piece, they say like, you really got the essence of what I wanted from this and what that person or pet means to me. So yeah, I appreciate my mom saying that in the past. It sort of means a lot more to me now.
Well, and I think the other part to me is you really care about helping people. Like you're really a kind person and you really want to help people. And I think that came through a lot in your sort of the second half of your childhood, like you were saying, when you left and you were put in those positions. And I'm curious how you think those two things interact and influence each other in your life. So how the art affects your helping of people, and how you helping people impacts your art. Like how those, because I do think that they feed into each other. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I that's the feeling I get.
You're right. Yeah, I would say that I think my interest in other people and helping other people sort of came from being sort of on the outside when I was younger. I definitely, wanting to connect with people, but not necessarily knowing how, and then having this feeling of being an outcast and not necessarily having people that I could interact with and understand. I think that made me sort of hungry for it. And when I did have friends, my friends would always come to me for advice or want me to sort of give input on their situations. And I think that made me a better listener. I didn't always have something to say, but I would listen to what they said and then, offer, support or condolences, even if it wasn't, strong advice, just sort of giving sort of an emotional reaction to it, I think is what people need a lot. And seeing how that impacted people positively, I think is what really started my interest in helping people. And the connection between that and art, I think, is that it just gives you a better understanding of like how things work on an emotional level. I think that emotions sometimes get overlooked for like the technical side of things or like the sort of concrete stuff that you can observe in the world. But I think that when you make art, like an emotional reaction, at least to me, an emotional reaction is like the greatest reaction you can have to your art. I used to say that I wanted to make stuff that would make people cry, but now I think that's a little bit, one-sided. It's like I don't just want people to cry. I want people to laugh and cry and, remember things that they hadn't thought of before or had repressed in some way. Just opening those channels of like stagnation isn't healthy, and I think that when you can have a safe space to express yourself and to release emotions, I think that art becomes a pathway for that to happen. So yeah, I think that the capacity for art to be like an outlet for both the artist and the person viewing the art or the person receiving the art in terms of tattooing, it's that sort of fulfills my want to help people and to connect with people in a way other than, there's only so much you can say before it gets muddled up with things that people have already heard and things that people don't want to hear. But if you can listen and create something that creates a bond between you, I find it a much more satisfying and sort of like almost genuine way to connect with people. It doesn't have as much connotations and barriers between you and the person. So yeah, I think that they are definitely connected in terms of my desire to help people and my desire to create things. I think that the expression on both sides is something that connects them very well.
How did you get into tattooing?
Kind of silly way to get into tattooing, but I was always interested in it. And then when I went into my first tattoo piercing shop when I was 16 without my parents' permission, it was still at a time where like a lot of tattoo shops were sort of a bunch of dudes listening to heavy metal or, just loud music and loud machines and sort of dark inside. And it wasn't that I was scared of it, but I didn't feel like I would fit in one of those environments. Like I was still a little bit shy and, didn't feel super personable all the time. But I had like nice experiences with the people who I worked with when I was first getting tattooed. But yeah, I just sort of put it on the back burner. It's like, maybe it's not for me. Then I went to school, gained a lot more confidence, and the industry also changed a lot. It's a lot more widespread now, and you get a lot more diversity in terms of artists and the kind of shops you can work at and go to. So after I graduated, I was in North Bay and I moved to Sudbury, which is just outside of North Bay, and I was just working like part-time jobs. Like I worked for Amazon for a little bit, which fucking sucked, and I worked for, I worked at the mall at the same time as Amazon. I was working my ass off, and it was just very brutal. I'd worked since I was 14, and just with mental health and stuff, just a lot of struggles in terms of like feeling like okay going to work every day and doing something just menial and mind-numbing. So after I quit those two jobs, I worked at a hotel for a little bit, which again put me in contact with people again, and I started to realize like I am good at this. Like I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at sort of adapting to different situations in terms of like the environment. Like I would not consider myself a blazer and, you know, dress pants kind of person, but I wore those every day at the hotel. And yeah, just you meet different people all the time and you deal with different situations, stressful situations at a hotel. Oh my God, bless those people. But yeah, so when I was working at the hotel, I was starting to feel a little bit run down by the job, and I was looking on Kijiji of all places just for jobs and different job searching sites, and I saw a shop was opening that was looking for apprentices. So I applied and did an interview and got in, and yeah, it was pretty quick, the turnaround for like, you know, doing my apprenticeship and learning about tattooing and sort of getting into the groove of things, I would say. And then, yeah, I started tattooing, tattooed myself first, tattooed some friends and family, and then, actually no family, I didn't tattoo any family, but yeah, tattooed some friends, and then, yeah, started tattooing the public, which is generally how an apprenticeship goes.
But you got your foot in the door there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Sudbury was where I started out and, you know, started developing how I wanted to tattoo and how I wanted to interact with people. And I worked with some really great people that I still respect a lot, and I love seeing their work, but some unfortunate situations like cut my time short there because my partner got really sick, and yeah, the whole fiasco of having to go through hospitals and try to get him well again. And yeah, so through that, all those stressors, I moved back home to Ottawa, which I'm definitely happy about at this point. Like I spent some time off like from tattooing and just reconnected with my friends and got some support for myself. My boyfriend got well, which is great. And then, yeah, so after about 6 months of just being at home and feeling like my tattoo career might not start up again because I, you know, had barely started, and then I took some time off, and I was pretty disheartened. But at some point, like I think it was around the new year, the year that I started tattooing again, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna start taking some chances and like applying to places and showing them my portfolio. And if it doesn't work out, what have I got to lose? It's something that I really like. I always tell people it's the best job I've ever had. It's a job that doesn't make me feel drained at the end of the day. It's a job that, you know, I get genuine fulfillment, connection with people. I get to express myself, all the things that I've been seeking all my life. I get from tattooing. So, yeah, I applied to a few places. That like I would not have been happy at. But I was sort of, again, wanting to get my foot back in the door and you know, get enough experience that people would sort of look at me as an actual option for hiring. But after I applied to a few places, I applied to Good Dog Tattoos, which was pretty new at the time. Like I think they were about a year into being open. And my boss, Daryl, was working here just on his own with a piercer. And yeah, so I reached out to him, and he gave me like a pretty positive response pretty quick, and asked me to come in and talk to him and show him some of my art. And we developed a great rapport like right away. Like that first day that I came in here, he was friendly, he was, you know, honest about my art and where my skill level was at, and just made me feel like there is hope for tattooing. Like it's not like I have to be all dissuaded and stuff. And yeah, he took a chance on me and wanted to work with me, which was great. Like I'm so grateful to him. And since then, like this shop has been so amazing for my confidence again. Like just having something that supports you and wants you to do well, it makes a world of difference in terms of what you feel capable of and what you feel like you can do for others. It makes you less focused on the negative, like what you have to do for yourself to survive. It makes you feel more it just opens up a lot of avenues where you can flourish not only in your career but in your personal life and your relationships. It just makes so much difference. So yeah, I've been here for a year now, and I've been tattooing for 2 years, and in my time here, I feel like I've learned so much, and I've had so many opportunities that I wouldn't have had before. And yeah, the support is like unmatched. I'm really, really grateful and happy to be here. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about this place. Like, obviously you got the job here, and they sound amazing. Everything that I see from them, I would say that corroborates that. But just tell me a little bit about Good Dog.
Yeah, so it's called Good Dog Tattoos because Daryl has a very good dog named Cleo, and she's a black lab bulldog mix. So she's a little short lab with like a stocky stature, but she's our logo. She's great. Daryl is a great tattoo artist. He sort of focuses on traditional tattooing, which is something that I didn't have at my last shop. It was all sort of fine line tattoos, which it's not exactly my style. Like, I was doing them, but I'm more interested in sort of colorful, bold pieces. So having Daryl as a mentor has been amazing for learning about the history of tattooing, for learning about the foundations of tattooing in terms of how it started and how you get a tattoo to look as good as possible. It's yeah, traditional tattooing definitely gives you that foundational knowledge that you need to start making your tattoos look the way you want them to look. So yeah, Daryl's definitely been a huge influence on not only my skills, but also like how I want to express myself in tattooing, how I want to draw things. And yeah, so started out just me and Daryl tattooing here, and then we had a few guest artists, and then eventually we got Paul, who's our third artist here, who has so much experience, like I think it's over 20 years of experience. I think he started tattooing in the early 90s, so yeah, definitely over 20 years. I think around 30 years of tattooing, actually. But yeah, the work he does is just phenomenal. It's so yeah, two great inspirations to me to work beside and learn from, pick up what I can when I'm watching them tattooing, get their feedback on my work. It's a great like team environment where we all sort of bounce off each other, which is what I think that tattooing should always be. Like, we don't have a ton of regulations. We don't have a ton of, we have our hygiene regulations, but there's not a ton of, there's no schooling, there's no like board of people who's going to tell you like this is a good tattoo and this is a bad tattoo. It's all about community and bouncing off each other. Social media helps a lot. Everyone's got to sort of, in terms of hygiene, definitely keep each other in check. Like everyone who's tattooing should put that on like a high pedestal of like hygiene's the most important part of this. If one person's fucking up, it makes us all look bad. But also a community in terms of how you apply the tattoos, how you draw the tattoos. Sharing information between us makes us all better. It makes people want tattoos more when they look better. So having that community and that communication between artists, I think, is super important. Yeah, and we try to keep the shop like as friendly and open as possible. We're out here in like a suburb sort of area, so we get all kinds of people. We get punks, we get housewives, we get the housewife kids who are getting their first tattoo, and we get a lot of like people who are just graduated from high school. Like, you get a lot of variety in terms of people who want tattoos, which is, it's great, like seeing all the different people who are interested in it now and the different ideas that people have. Like, just getting that variety keeps you thinking about new things and different things. It doesn't make you stagnate in one spot or in one idea. I love doing walk-ins. Like, some artists don't really like walk-ins, but I love it because it's something new every day that you get to do. It's gives you an opportunity to meet new people. It just opens the doors to so many new experiences, and people who, maybe they're just curious about it. They can walk in and ask you about it. You could show them the art on the walls, and it just opens up a lot of doors for people, including the artists, to have a walk-in shop that's very open. We try to keep it bright. We're all friendly. Nobody here is like stuck in a corner, not talking to anyone. It's people always say we have a great vibe. And yeah, I couldn't be happier here.
Where would you say, like, tell me about your style? So where you're at in your style, and also like what you would describe your style as.
Yeah, so I'm definitely still developing my tattoo style. When I started tattooing, I kind of had this almost like this overconfidence of like, well, I already have a style when I'm drawing, but definitely going to university like kind of changed that a lot, because there's a way I like to draw, but then there's also like the classical drawing that I was talking about, like anatomy and just structural stuff. Like I learned a lot more about that, and sort of trying to balance that and style, it changes your art quite a bit. So yeah, when I started, I was like, I'm just gonna have a style when I start tattooing, which is not true. Like because people bring you an idea, and it's like, oh, I'm looking at this idea, I'm gonna draw it, and then it's like, oh, it's not really in my style or whatever, but that's not what the client wants, or you can't figure out how to make the reference image look like your style. And then also the technical application of tattoos, like a lot of the style relies on what needles you're using, what colors you're using, how you're shading the tattoo. It's not stuff that you think so much about when you're drawing with like paper and pencils or digital drawing, which is what a lot of tattoo artists use to start their designs now. So now just finished my second year of tattooing, so in my third year now, now I'm really starting to think about, like, look at other artists, look at what techniques they're using and how I want to sort of let that influence my style. So I would say my style's still developing, but I'm really influenced by new school tattoos and neo-traditional tattoos. Neo-traditional sort of blends like traditional techniques with almost like more realistic imagery, but not necessarily realistic coloring or shading. Like it's a lot more painterly, I would say, in terms of how you go about shading and coloring it. You want to sort of make some unique choices to make yours stand out. And there's also a lot of sort of little extra design elements that go into neo-traditional, like floral elements or filigree, or just different sort of little, those details that I was talking about before. Like you can just add more details in those. And then new school sort of focuses on bold colors, just new ways of doing things where you can use the techniques of tattooing to make something that looks really cool on the skin. Sort of, yeah, just new techniques that weren't necessarily available or used in traditional tattooing because the tools weren't there, or the inks, like the amount of inks that you can get now is crazy. So yeah, sort of, I would say I'm leaning towards a blend of those two styles for my own tattoos. And yeah, when I do a piece that I'm like really happy with, those are the pieces that I kind of go back to and look at and try to remind myself, like that's what I want to be doing and that's what I want to be tattooing. But like I said, because I like walk-ins, I'm still very open to seeing an idea that someone brings in, or listening to someone talk during a consultation, and yeah, just sort of working with their ideas. And still use some fine line stuff, but I usually try to incorporate it into something else so that I can work with those other styles that I like a lot more.
So that was interesting, because you're talking about there's this evolution of tattooing, obviously, from the classical, neoclassical, the new age now. Where do you, and you see in the culture too, where let's say 40 years ago even, a tattoo is like, you stand out.
Yeah.
Well, most people, I would say you stand out now if you don't have a tattoo. Like majority of people have a tattoo.
Yeah.
Where do you think this is going? Like where's tattooing, sort of the confluence of art and putting art onto someone's body? Like where do you think the next where's that going? Where's the industry going?
I think you see a lot more, like whereas before it was like someone would get a tattoo and they'd have their tattoo, or maybe multiple. Now I think there's a lot more about like sort of bodily curation. Like people want their body to look a certain way, so people get only black and gray tattoos, people get only color tattoos, some people get only ornamental tattoos where it's mandalas all over their body, or just flowers all over their body, and they're placed in a certain way to sort of shape the body, and it almost becomes, whereas tattoos used to be a statement of some kind. Now it's like a fashion statement. It's like you express yourself the same way you would express yourself with fashion through your tattoos. I definitely think my torso is sort of like that. Like I like to get fun tattoos and just sort of collect them. So my arms and legs are kind of just collections, but my torso, I very specifically pick the placements and what is on my torso because they're not necessarily meaningful to me, but when I look at them, it makes me feel a certain way, or makes me feel, reminds me of a certain way that I want to be, or a way that I don't want to be anymore, or, it's this idea of like your tattoo has to mean something, but rather than having like a concrete meaning that you tell to people when they ask you, it's like, this makes me feel a certain way, or this makes me proud to have this body or whatever. I think that's something that's really interesting that's coming out of tattooing right now. There's also a lot of talk about, sort of tattooing moving towards robotics and AI generated stuff. I actually had my first couple of AI generated designs come to me recently, which it's great at first glance. You're like, oh, cool, something that's like, I can use this as a direct reference, and it's not someone else's artwork. But you look at it a little closer and it doesn't make sense still. So it's still a ways off. I think that people are a little bit too, trusting of what AI can do right now. And, the idea of like a CNC machine pounding out a tattoo on you, it's like you move 1 inch over and your tattoo's folded in half. It's got a ways to go still. And I think that a lot of people are still going to want that human element of it because it's something on your skin, something so personal that you can get it removed, but people, please don't think of tattoos as something that can go away easily, because it's a lot of money and it's a lot of pain, a lot of time to get a tattoo removed. And yeah, having that human connection sort of, alleviates some of the stress of like, I don't know if this is going to turn out the way I wanted. I don't know if this is going to be worth the money I paid for it. Being able to talk with people and get different opinions on stuff, it's very valuable in terms of tattooing. So, yeah.
It's somewhat of a collaborative creation too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going back and forth with this person trying to figure out an idea in their head together.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure there is some application that you could put AI towards that, but I think there is that human spark in it of two people creating something together that'll be very difficult to replace, I think.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. The other thing that brings up for me is like, sometimes I have one idea and I'm talking with my client, and then, Daryl will come over or Paul will come over and they have, another idea that I wouldn't have thought of, but the client is super receptive to. It's like, that's another thing about being in a shop that's sort of an open community, is that we are all bouncing off each other in many different ways, and being able to get multiple opinions in one shop is really valuable in terms of getting what you really want, and having a piece of art that you're going to be happy with for all of its longevity.
Where do you think you'll be in the future, in this industry or wherever? Like, what's your aspiration, Monica?
I definitely don't have any aspirations to leave here right now. Like I feel very happy here, and I feel very supported, and I feel like I'm sort of constantly growing. I'd like to do a lot more traveling in tattooing. Like, I'd like to go to conventions and meet new artists at guest spots and stuff. Just, again, expanding that community that I have for support and gaining skills. Like, it's definitely a job where you never stop learning. And if you have stopped learning, you're not going to be very good at tattooing anymore. Even Paul, like, constantly trying to learn new things and get new ideas. And yeah, it's something that I think it's going to be like a lifelong journey. I think that's my main goal, is just to spread out more and meet new people who are tattooing and gain more skills and knowledge from people. And I'd love to go to other countries, because tattooing can be quite different in other countries, and sort of see and learn and just get new experience with the craft.
So I got two last things, but we'll start with the serious one and then have a funny one at the end.
Okay.
So you got the mic right now. You're talking to the world. If there's one thing you want to tell people, like just people out there, what's something you think the world would be a better place having heard from you?
Oh man.
No pressure.
I think that right now, with social media and with like so much access to like other people, it's like not necessarily like the same as genuine face-to-face connection. I think what would make the world a better place is if people are more open to, not open to. I think what would make the world a better place is more community, more like face-to-face interactions with people, more just going outside and meeting the people around you, communicating with people face-to-face, learning about them, not being so in your bubble that you get one-sided. I think it's important for people to have hope in humanity, and I think that the internet's so full of information and full of different perspectives. The way that you get real, genuine feeling of like community and hope for the world is by meeting people, helping people that you can actually touch, that you can actually have an influence on and let them influence you. That's something that I feel like a lot of people, especially since COVID, it's sort of lost on people, is this idea that like we're human beings, like our community should be in person. Like the internet is sort of like this, it's like a hologram of what human interaction should be, and it's a little bit fuzzy and a little bit obscured, and I think that that's something that I think everyone is like missing out on a little bit, is that people are not that scary. Like it's not the end of times. Like people, like the internet can tell you so many things that make you feel like the world is falling apart and ending. But I think the more community we build and the more community we have amongst ourselves in real life, the less like crumbling the world seems. So yeah, I'd say that's my statement.
I knew you'd have something smart to say. Okay, so the last one, funny one. You brought this up a while ago, and I've been sitting on it, and I was like, I don't know if we'll have time, we'll see. So you said, you're talking about the hospital, you're talking about the hotel, you're talking about like the craziest like stuff. So do you have like, what's the craziest story you can tell us? If there's something you can tell us for like just a funny note at the end, like, because you said, we got to give props to the hotel staff. I'm sure that lots of hotel staff seeing this. What's the craziest thing you can talk about?
So many things are like, I don't know if people would think it was funny, but one time someone died in the stairwell. Someone just dropped dead in the stairwell, and we had to like leave them there until the coroner came, because you can't move the body. So we had to like block off the stairwell, and it was sad. Like I feel bad for that person and their family. Like, but yeah, I was just watching the cameras, like, I don't know what to do. I'm just sitting here. Like, there's some other stuff that, like, a lot of the stuff that people at hotels deal with is like, sex trafficking is real, and you have to deal with that. And sometimes the people who are in charge of the hotel don't want to deal with that stuff because it looks bad for business. And but yeah, the people at the front desk are the people who deal with it. Like they see the things that happen, and if somebody has a gun, they're the ones that get threatened. So I don't know. It's definitely a intense job that's like pretty. You don't think about all the stuff that can happen there, but yeah, hotels are wild.
So less funny, but more wild. More
wild,
yeah.
Not so much funny. I mean,
it's more absurdity. If anything, right?
Yeah, absurd for sure. Like having to knock on people's doors where you can see the smoke coming out from their door, and you're like, you have to stop smoking in there, and they're like, I'm not smoking, and I'm like, you're smoking. I can see the joint in the ashtray. Or you knock on someone's door because they're doing something bad, and they immediately run to the bathroom and turn the shower on, and it's like, I heard you playing the loud music. I heard you banging on the walls. Like, I only knocked after I confirmed that I heard those things. It's the same thing with being a residence assistant. Like, although younger people are a little bit more funny. Like, they're
maybe less crazy.
One time when I was a residence assistant, I was walking through the halls doing my rounds, and there's, common rooms, and there was a common room with the blinds wide open, and people were using a beer bong right in my view from one window to the other, and I was like, that's not allowed. Had to go in there and be like, why are you doing that in here, first of all? And second of all, get out. I have to take that away now. Like, that was sort of my style as a Don. I was like, just don't, get better at hiding things. It's not that hard.
Monica, thanks so much for talking to me. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.